first learned about the issue of human trafficking when I was serving in Phnom Penh, Cambodia in 2006. This was during my undergraduate time, focusing on cross-cultural studies. And after college, I had the opportunity to work for a women's organization here in the U.S., dealing primarily with domestic violence, sexual assault, and some human trafficking. And it was really both those experiences that compounded in my mind the disproportionate suffering of women and girls around the world. And from that, the Lord gave me really opportunities to start speaking in organizations and in churches about these issues with women and girls. And coming to Eastern, I was coming from that local place, working with that local women's organization. And so I really wanted to expand my knowledge in international development so that I could apply both missions and development together in the developing world specifically. So during graduate school at Eastern, I really just honed in and spent a lot of my time researching the issue of human trafficking, as I'm sure you all are doing, writing huge research papers right now. You've already written one, I think. And so a unique part of the experience here was being able to choose what you wanted to research, what issues you wanted to really hone in. And so I did that, and I focused on global women's issues, specifically human trafficking. Post grad school, as Stan can attest, in grad school I was very focused, and I really was focused on wanting to work for a mainline Christian development organization. So for my practicum and during my internship, I worked in Uganda with Samaritan's Purse. And then later down the line, I worked in India with another organization. And through both those experiences, I continue to see just the extreme disproportionate suffering of women and girls from West Africa, across the Middle East, throughout Asia, in some of really the most remote places you can think of. Oftentimes girls are simply forgotten. And so that's really what launched me into now working with She Is Safe and with Girls Globe and focusing on empowering women and girls around the world. I just want to show you a very, very short video. I don't know if we can get the lights really quick. I don't know if this will show up with all the lights off. But just to give you a little glimpse of what we do in the realm of anti-trafficking, and then we will talk a little bit more. There's little Eastern pictures. I thought I'd throw that up there for you. So I'm going to talk first a little bit about the issues that we address at She Is Safe. She Is Safe has worked for over 10 years to prevent, rescue, and restore women and girls from abuse and exploitation. We work in least reached areas as far as the gospel and most high risk for girls and women. As you've seen on that video, really poverty, gender inequality, and son preference are the main systemic issues that fuel the marginalization of women and girls. Throughout my time, and especially over the past 2 to 3 years of traveling internationally, I've seen just how women and girls are least valued and least educated in societies. Currently, there are actually 57 million adolescent girls, 57 million adolescents out of school, and the majority of those are female. Whether you go into an urban center or a rural area, you can immediately see that girls are the ones left out. They're given little nutrition, often kept to labor at home, or they're married before they're ready. So actually 1 in 7 girls are married before they reach the age of 15 in the developing world. If they're not married early, they will potentially be vulnerable to being sold into some type of domestic or sexual slavery. Human trafficking, and I'm sure as development students you've heard a lot of these statistics, but human trafficking is one of the fastest growing illegal industries in the world today, only second to the drug trade. This industry receives a revenue up to $32 billion a year. But this is humans being traded. You know, it's a business. It's an illegal business.
What was the dollar amount?
$32 billion a year. And as you saw from that video, 80% of those are female, and it profits on the most vulnerable human beings, and that really are women and girls. So throughout my time working in, so this is, sorry, I wanted to show you this. This is what's known in missional terms as the 1040 window, but this is least reached areas of the world. So from West Africa through the Middle East and to South Asia, this window holds 85% of the world's poor and 95% of those least reached for the gospel. So throughout my time working in East Africa and South Asia, I have just been able to sit and listen and hear girls and women's stories. And it's just been a wonderful experience over the last 2 to 3 years to just sit with these women and hear what's happening in their lives. Stories like Deepika, who lives in Northeast India. She, unlike many girls in the U.S., did not have an opportunity to grow up in a loving environment. She actually spent most of her life as a young girl living in a brothel in India. And Deepika's father was an alcoholic and a gambler, and having no other options, her mother was forced into prostitution. Deepika's story is similar to so many other girls in India and South Asia. I think about Rima, who is a young woman who was she works in a red light district in Bali, in Indonesia, and she's one of 2 million girls in Indonesia that are currently involved in prostitution and the sex industry. Rima was brought from an impoverished village, and she thought that she was going to Bali to have a waitressing job and earn a good income, and she quickly found herself enslaved in the sex industry with very little chance of escape. At She Is Safe, we take these issues very seriously, and we work in about 8 countries around the world. We work in India, Nepal, China, South Sudan, Indonesia, Mali, and some countries in the Middle East. So I really want to unpack for you what we actually do. Sometimes hearing all these statistics and thinking about the overwhelming issues that face women and girls around the world today, it can be overwhelming, right? What can we do? What can we do to help So we prevent, rescue, and restore, and I just want to unpack that a little bit for you. So it's said that there's a direct linkage between economic empowerment and reducing a girl's vulnerability to being trafficked or to other types of abuse and exploitation. If you empower a woman economically or a girl economically, she will directly affect change in the lives of 26 other people in her community. And she will actually invest 90% of what she earns back into her family. So we're seeing in the world of international development today that, and I'm sure as you are researching and doing papers and things like that, you see a lot of organizations are moving to women and girls being the entry point into communities. And it's because they transform the community from the inside out. So we've seen this happen in the lives of girls that we work with, and I'm going to share with you a couple different ways that we do that. One is, believe it or not, through pig and goat farming programs. So in Nepal, currently, there are, in some rural villages in Nepal, there are no girls over the age of 12 because they've all been sold. So what has been found as a natural bridge to enter the community is goats. Goats are they're used for trade. They are a source of economic development. And so what happens in these rural villages in Nepal is a family, a young girl, will be given 2 goats, and then when that goat produces, that provides a viable income for her family, and then that girl must then take the offspring of those goats and at least help another family in her community. So it's empowering her and her family economically, but it's also a natural bridge for the gospel and Christ to enter the community as well. These are areas in the world where Christ is not known or has not been named, and so those two things are happening coincidentally. Another thing that we do, and this is more so in India, Indonesia, and now in South Sudan, are what's called transformation groups. And these groups are actually, if you're familiar with the term self-help groups, these are small groups of women that come together and save. It's not microfinance. It's simply just a small savings program. And so these women come together, about 10 women, and pool all their resources. They have logs and regulations and officers in their group, and they decide how the money is spent. So if, let's say for an example, a woman has a medical crisis in her family, then she can take a small loan from the group, which she'll have to repay back. But no banks are involved. It's just the women and the savings that they're pulling together. So what we've seen in these groups is really transformation in the entire community, because women are being empowered economically. Their husbands are becoming on board because they're making money, and communities are changing. And in these groups, there's an atmosphere to talk about issues. So to talk about things like domestic violence, or things like trafficking, or abuse among children. And you know, when women get together, you just talk about things. So all of these things they can talk about in these groups. We've had women who are just really courageous entrepreneurs start their own businesses from these self-help groups. So those are 2 ways that we prevent women and girls from not only being vulnerable to being trafficked, but being vulnerable for all types of abuse and exploitation. One woman recently in a transformation group said, you know, my husband now beats me less because I have value. I have a job, and I'm bringing income into the family. So the second point is rescue. And if you know anything about the issue of trafficking, you know that there are a variety of ways that rescue can happen. Some approaches are more, hey, let's just go in and get these girls out with the government, that type of thing. She is Safe does not generally take that approach. We have found that the most high-risk areas for girls are along country borders and in brothel and red light areas. So for example, 15,000 Nepali girls are actually trafficked to India each year. So we operate 2 border stations on the border of India and Nepal. Obviously, you have to have a good relationship with the government if you're going to do anything on the border. So we have a good relationship with the government, and we are able to intercept thousands of different situations with girls coming across the border illegally. And we're also able to intercept those that are doing the trafficking to refer them to some type of recourse or action. The goal there would be able to reunite girls with their families, but if that's not possible, they then are taken to what we call a restoration home, where they're able to receive counseling and discipleship and learn a skill and have a viable income. So those are the 2 ways that we intercept those types of situations. Restoration is a huge piece of what we do, and we help girls emotionally, physically, and spiritually, those that have been survived a trafficking situation. So girls who have been rescued can come to, like I said, restoration homes, where they will receive counseling and discipleship and be able to propel forward to live lives in freedom. I was recently in Indonesia, and I always ask girls, you know, how are you really able to forgive those that have hurt you and harmed you? Some of these women and girls have experienced some things that we can't even possibly imagine. And recently, sitting on a concrete floor in Bali, I was just so reminded that God is the restorer of life, and really it's Christ who changes lives, and who's changing the lives of these girls, and it's just so exciting to be a part of that change. I want to tell you one quick story, and that's about this girl on the right. Her name is Riti, and Riti lives in a rural village in Nepal. And Riti was actually sold by her father into a domestic servant. And so recently we're in Nepal and asking about the story and talking with her father, and he's telling us the story, saying, you know, I sold my daughter, and as soon as I sold her, I realized, wow, I made a mistake. And he had heard from the village over that she was being mistreated and abused, and he thought, okay, I have to get Riti back. And so he went and he got her back. And it's funny because when our coworker was leaving the village, some village women called her over and said, you know, do you want to know the real story? You know, do you want to know the rest of the story? You know, as women will always tell the rest of the story. But the rest of the story actually was that the whole entire community had committed, because of this pig farming program and because of hearing about the issues involving trafficking, the whole village had committed that they would not sell their girls. And so the whole entire village shows up on Riti's father's doorstep and says, hey, you got to live up to your commitment. Mm-hmm. And So we're just seeing life change happen in entire communities. Not only are girls having an opportunity to learn a skill, continue their education because this is providing that for them, and also Christ is entering into these communities and really transforming the community from the inside out. So not just girls, but the whole entire community, which to me is just so exciting. So girls are becoming business owners, and girls are becoming rescuers themselves. A lot of the girls that I've sat and talked with are like, we can't leave our other sisters in darkness. We have to go, and we have to tell them, and we have to rescue them as well. So women and girls are becoming rescuers themselves. Just another quick story. I could tell you a million, but I was recently in India, where in northeast India there's actually a corridor where countries meet. So Bangladesh, Nepal, India, all on the border there. And that area is very transit-based, and anywhere where there's a lot of movement or traffic, it's easy to traffic in people and traffic people out. So in this particular area, girls are actually being born into brothels and bred for a life of prostitution. Their mothers were trafficked into this area, and now they're being bred for a life of prostitution. But God is restoring their lives, and we're actually rescuing girls out of that area and allowing them to receive an education and live in a restoration home. And these girls are just spitfires and awesome. They are so just little justice advocates, and it just makes me so excited and happy. But just to hear their faith and how they are trusting God for their lives, and they're receiving an education, they will not no longer have to live in darkness and in oppression. And they are, some of them actually do go back, and some of their moms are still in that area, and they pray for their moms, and they talk with other young girls, and they really just are creating change in their area, and they've been rescued, and they want to see others who are rescued as well. So that's just another example just of how God is restoring lives. And really the most exciting part for me, and we're going to interact on this a little bit, is that God is doing this through indigenous grassroots movements. And so at She Is Safe, we partner with local Christian individuals and local Christian ministries in this work. So we work very diligently to create long-term cross-cultural partnerships with Christian women and Christian organizations. This is one woman in India who's creating immense change in her community. I mentioned transformation groups before. This was actually a model that did not come from She Is Safe. It came from this woman, and it came from her ministry in India. So we're partnering alongside and really co-learners with them, and we help in capacity building and strengthening the work that they're doing. But we're also learners from them as well. So this transformation group model, as I said, it started in India, but it's now in Indonesia and in South Sudan, and it's because of this woman. So on my time on the field over the past couple of years, my whole perspective on development and missions has changed, and it's women like this woman here that really, for me personally, I want to champion what they're doing and partner with them to not only share the gospel, but also empower women and girls. And so I can tell you endless stories of women just like her who are creating change around the world, and they're doing it with their own resources. They're doing it with little help, and so we get to come alongside and say, hey, how can we be a global community? How can we help create change together? And so, yeah, it's just these women and young women my age are creating such immense change for women and girls around the world. And so, for my own personal, in my own personal journey, these are the women that I want to champion and that I want to work alongside. And but how do we do that? I mean, you think, you know, that takes a lot, right? To partner as a U.S.-based organization, to partner with people in the hard places, right? To partner with local Christian movements in some places where even the gospel is not readily accepted. So how do we really empower and create grassroots change and effective partnerships with indigenous movements and organizations? So I want us to just interact a little bit on this for a minute. And I know you all are, I can remember when I was in school, and you might be brain dead, you might be tired of thinking. Sometimes I can remember being in development dialogues and you know, just thinking of like the 15 pages I needed to write before like 3 days from now. You know, so I understand that you're in that mode. But I also don't want this to just be me talking. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a scenario, okay? So I want us to talk about partnerships and specifically partnering with grassroots organizations. So I think we can split. You all can participate in this too, so if you want to.
Yeah,
Yes.
we'd love to.
Okay, great.
Please.
So maybe we can split up. Do we want to mix it, students with
Weirdos.
non-students?
I was going to go with non-students, but
Non-students?
figure it out.
Okay, so maybe we can just, one of you go over here and one of you come over here. Does that works? Kathleen, do you want to switch with someone?
Sure.
Okay. So, Todd, here you go.
Okay.
Oh, you want to? Oh.
Okay, you're
Oh, so
going?
she's
All right,
using
so
one
here's a
of mine.
paper
Oh.
for your group.
I thought you were,
Um,
I don't know.
Welcome to the
Kind
other
of
side.
savory and milk.
here's some markers. Here's some markers. Yeah, with your in this.
Are you in?
Oh,
Yeah.
two groups?
Two groups, yeah.
Okay. Are you the artist?
Okay, so
She's the artist.
what I want us to be thinking about before I give you the scenario, this is not going to be an exhaustive exercise by any means, but this just gets us thinking. I want us to be thinking about some of the issues that I've talked about. So we're going to focus on the issue of trafficking just because that's where we're at today. But I want us to think of how would it be possible to partner effectively with an indigenous organization, a local organization in a different country. So I know this seems very big and broad, but we don't have to solve the world's issues in this today. But I just want you to think. So I want you, here's what you are, okay? And this is going to be purely based from us as an organizational perspective. We know we don't have the grassroots voice here because we're going to be operating as the U.S. organization. But I want you to think that you are a U.S.-based international organization that's focused on preventing women and girls from being trafficked into forced prostitution. You're in a city in Bali. You're in an urban center. So just think you're in an urban place. But as an organization, you find that there's a local organization already working on the ground, and already working to prevent women and girls from being forced into prostitution. So they're doing this through skills building and income generating activities. That organization has about 10 staff, and they have about 3 staff that are dedicated to reaching a community of 150 women, okay? So with that framing in mind, we're just gonna do some free brainstorming, okay? So what I want you all to do is I'm gonna give you 2 minutes. You get 2 minutes to brainstorm anything that you can think of that you would need to establish a cross-cultural partnership with this local organization. After 2 minutes, I'm going to tell you to stop, and then you're going to switch papers real quick, and the opposite group will write free brainstorm on the paper, okay? So by the end of 4 minutes, you'll have each written on each other's paper. You'll then get your paper back, and we'll talk after you do that. Does everyone kind of understand what we're doing? What are some things that group 1 that you all talked about?
Well, our common themes were meeting with leaders, a need for translation, and a plan for communication barriers and how to overcome them. Resources and figuring out how to make it a partnership rather than a one-way thing. Governmental support, knowledge of what has worked, and experiences of the women themselves, and so the organization can't paint a rosy picture, but how the women feel about it too. Current partnerships, knowing what the organization is already doing. Church support, cultural understanding, trust, evaluate effectiveness, and learn the priorities of the organization.
Yeah, you all are awesome. Jesus. What did you all come up with?
We had hoped that the other side was thinking about all the cultural things, and they did. So we were talking about other things such as logistics and meeting together with them and just discovering what are their assets that we could benefit from, and then what are our assets that they could benefit from as we meet together with them over cooking, over meals in a conference, in a lodge, on the subject of sex trafficking that they were invited to. And since some other things came to mind outside the 2 minutes, if that's all right, were papers. We allow papers to be presented, or we ask papers to be presented from their side, we bring some from our side, and then we hear from each other, and then we learn from that also needs and skills, and then you know, when we were in Costa Rica with Tomas and the Zero Down Development, I thought about something where, okay, it's going to be pretty much assumed that if we're coming from the U.S. that we're going to come with financial resources. But remember how they did, once they hit the ground, they say after this, you have to put your chips in, and that we'll provide the teaching and the development work, but after that you provide the income because you're the hosts, we're the guests.
Right.
So I was thinking, based on that, we could say, this will be the first and last time that we're going to pay for hotels and lodging for everybody who attends here, the food, everything. And then after that, we're going to depend on you, but here's what we have to bring in terms of skills and teaching. But we need you for the rest of it, because that way it wouldn't set the precedent that we're always going to be bringing resources only or mainly.
My point in having you do this exercise was to really just to get you thinking of how it could possibly work to partner with a local organization. Because if you're thinking about an issue, whether you're passionate about women's issues or whether you're passionate about water and sanitation or food security, whatever development aspect that you're passionate about, most likely there is some type of local indigenous organization that is working on that same issue. And for me and with She Is Safe, we have found those people of peace that really align with our own mission to prevent, rescue, and restore women and girls from abuse and exploitation. And it's just really, when you meet some of these organizations, I think the thing that's impressed me most is a lot of them have been working for longer than I've been alive. You know, longer than we've been talking about the issue of modern day slavery. Longer than things in development have been, you know, and some are a trendy topic. And so for me, these are the people of peace that motivate me, that I want to partner with and want to champion what they're doing. And I just want to explain to you a little bit about how we establish cross-cultural partnerships at She Is Safe. And a lot of you touched on really great issues. You're ready to start a partnership with an organization. But it first starts with exploring. You know, we have, God has given us the mission of least reached areas and most high risk for girls and women. So where is that? And where are those areas? And so the countries that we work in, most of them are very low on, if you've heard of the Global Poverty Index, very low on the Global Poverty Index scale. And a lot of them are higher conflict countries, making them very high risk for women and girls to suffer abuse and exploitation. So we explore, where do we want to work? What's the landscape of that area? And then we find people of peace. We find holistic faith-based initiatives that are working on the ground. And we do a lot of the things that you mentioned there. We sit with them. We learn about what they're doing. We hear from them. A lot of times we're in a relationship building phase before even monetary support enters into the partnership. And so we discuss, we get to know them, we get to know their work. They get to know us. You know, how do they know that we're not going to exploit the work that they're doing? It's a two-sided thing, right? There's a lot of, I've been able to meet with a lot of indigenous organizations that have actually been really burned by other organizations who haven't followed through with what we would consider is a solid long-term relationship and partnership. So once the partnership is up and running and papers are signed and dotted, we begin at sustaining and improving that partnership. So how our organization is structured is we have country directors and we have program specialists, but all of us live here in the U.S. So we're non-resident workers, and we live here in the U.S. and we spend part of our time during the year on the field with those that we partner with. So it's a different model in that aspect of how a lot of organizations work. But so we track progress. We whatever projects we're partnering with, we look at what they're doing and we share our knowledge and they share their knowledge. As I mentioned, one of the most successful works that we partner with in India didn't come from our brains. You know, it came from a local context, and we have since worked with them and taken that and made that into something that is reproducible in other countries. And so we engage here in the U.S. with local Christian communities to speak, pray, and raise funds on behalf of the partners that we work with. So we're not a foundation. If we come together in a partnership, whatever monetary help that we are giving in that partnership, it's not that, like we have a reserve of, you know, funds there, but we go and champion that work to people here in the U.S. and other places, and we raise funds for that specific project that we may be partnering with. And then we evaluate, right? Everything needs to be evaluated, and we continue to explore and innovate over the years, and it takes a long time. Our goal is not just to implement a huge program in a country and then jump out. We're in long-term cross-cultural relationship with people for the long term, and with the ultimate goal of both ourselves and the partners being committed to women and girls' lives, them living in freedom and faith and having a strong future. So I just wanted to explain a little bit more about how we do that and really get you to see that working at the local level, working with organizations at the local level is possible. And personally, for me, that's where I've been led in the realm of missions and development. I want to shift gears really quick. I know that we need to end by 11:30, but I want to shift gears a little bit. Now we're going to jump to the opposite end of the spectrum, and you can ask questions when we're done. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about another organization that I am involved with, and this is really in my the spare time that I have, which is sometimes not as much as I would like, but in my spare time, in addition to my work with She Is Safe, I work with an organization called Girls Globe. And I actually found out about Girls Globe on Twitter. About a year ago, was like, maybe I need to be, a little bit more social media savvy. And so I signed up for Twitter and found out about Girls Globe. And it's actually changed my part of my life. So Girls Globe was actually started in 2011 by a girl named Julia Wicklander, and she's actually from Sweden. She's our age, in her 20s, and well, I'm almost going to be 30, but she's in her 20s, and Julia was working at the United Nations in Denmark, and was very much not satisfied in the work that she was doing, and her passion is to really see the voices of grassroots change and grassroots organizations being highlighted around the world. So she actually started Girls Globe just as a blog, as her own personal blog, writing about women and girls issues that she is passionate about. In just about 2 years, we have grown to over 24 bloggers representing over 11 different countries. So our goal is, to not just be a Western voice for women and girls change, but a global voice. And so we write about kind of everything and anything having to do with women's health and rights and empowerment. So that is, we're constantly adding other voices, but with a goal to raise awareness and educate others about global issues concerning, like I said, the rights, health, and empowerment of women and girls. So we do this in several different capacities. Our main function is empowering what we call featured organizations, and the process of this is that organizations at the local level around the world can connect with Girls Globe, become a featured organization, and they can share about the good work that they're doing through the Girls Globe platform. So some of the organizations that we work with, they might not even have a running website, but they share and blog about their stories and what they're doing to create change for women and girls around the world. On the opposite spectrum, we have larger organizations like Save the Children and IJM, WaterAid, who have contacted us and said, hey, we want to share our stories through your communications platform as well. We recognize that you are now a voice in the conversation. We have grown to have many followers and made a lot of connections, and so we have larger organizations who've also said, hey, this is a great way to share about the work that we're doing as well. We raise our own voices and we empower others to share their stories. So we don't want to be someone else's voice. We want to just give them the platform and avenue to share what they're doing. So I mentioned that, and we are moving more to a social entrepreneurship model, but this featured organization aspect of what we do is not monetized. We don't charge organizations to write through our platform. That's just a function that they can do on their own. But we are developing a global interactive database of women's-based organizations to connect. So we're actually in conversations with some tech companies right now who are wanting to come alongside and see this come into fruition. So this database would be where if you're think of like a communications hub. So this database is a hub and essentially the go-to search engine for women's-based organizations to connect, share ideas, best practices, resources, funding, connect with funding sources, an all-around hub for women's-based organizations, and also those who are interested in funding women's-based organizations and those that are focused on empowering women. Again, all of that aspect of what we do, there's some of our featured organizations, all of that aspect of what we do is not monetized. So you think, how are you going to, like, how is this benefiting and how are you actually earning anything? But we found as we've been going down this road is that people really, they want essentially those that understand what's happening at the local level, those who understand international development, and those who can write about it well. And so all of us, as you saw some of our pictures up there before, all of us are international development professionals doing something in the realm of international development around the world. So we have people who are from South Asia who are in South Asia working. We have people in East Africa who are in East Africa working. And so we all have this knowledge and experience in the realm of global development. So what we've seen is that larger organizations want to hire us essentially as communications consultants. So in the past year, we have been a part of the core communications coverage for a conference called Women Deliver. It was the largest global development conference held in Malaysia last May. There were over 4,000 attendees there coming together from all around the world to talk about women's development. We were then invited to be a part of the core communications coverage for the United Nations General Assembly Week that was held in New York last fall. So I was there along with a team of people in the midst of what's happening and writing and blogging and using new media to really promote what's happening at those conferences. We were also recently in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia for the International Conference on Family Planning. And so we're moving to this model of really our are bloggers becoming international development communications consultants. So we, do you want another picture? Okay. We are currently, and we will actually, this is very in the beginning stages, but we will find out this week if there are several companies and larger international development organizations who want to fund some of our core work to really not only be on the ground and share stories of change, but to really just fuel what Girls Globe is doing, and that's connecting with grassroots voices, local organizations, who otherwise wouldn't have a platform to share about their work. So in this, what can you do? You can, if you're on social media, you can follow both She Is Safe and Girls Globe on Twitter, Instagram. I say all this to just open your thoughts and minds a little bit to having a grassroots perspective, and to no matter what your goal is in the international development arena, to find those people of peace that are on the ground that honestly have been really working for a long time on some of these issues. And that's my heart, so I love to share it with others. And if you're really passionate about women's issues, I am definitely willing to talk to you more about doing writing or blogging with either She Is Safe or Girls Globe and those types of things. But I really appreciate y'all listening to me and hearing my passion for grassroots change. And I think Stan will open it for questions. Any questions? Okay. So does anyone have any questions? And please repeat your questions because they will be recorded. Yeah.
I have a couple about She Is Safe.
Sure.
Is there an average age that you rescue? Or is there like a cutoff to, we target these women and not these?
No. There's, there are what's called, it seems like an oxymoron, but there are what's called retired sex workers. And generally, actually, that's around the age of sometimes 25. Still very young. So a lot of those that we're intervening and rescuing are very, very young. So anywhere between the age of 5 to 20. But they're generally there's no really age limit that we have. Yeah.
And then you talked about you do the border intervention.
Yeah.
And then you also go into brothels. Is that
Yeah.
government cooperation, or how does that work? Or can you talk about that? Because if you can't, it's okay.
Yeah, so along border stations, the local ministries that we partner with have a lot of good relationships with, especially with government officials on the border. So that works really well. It varies in red light districts and brothel areas. It depends on the community and how that community is structured. But our local ministry partners are very sensitive to those relationships. But they actually do just create trust and build trust slowly over time with the people that are living there. And in that aspect, they're allowed into those communities. When I was recently in India, the situation there is so sensitive that I myself did not go into the red light area, but because I didn't want to damage that relationship that our field partner has with those that are living there. So.
Okay, so thank you. A follow-up to that.
Sure.
The border, how that process goes. So in the case of India and Nepal, then is there efforts made to, let's say, girls coming from Nepal, is there ministries to help them get back to their homes or villages?
Yeah.
Or,
so
okay.
our field partners that work in Nepal are, they very much would love for a holistic reintegration into their family environment. Sometimes that's not possible. It depends on what the situation was with the girl being trafficked. So in some cases that is possible, that she would then be reintegrated back into her family. In some places that's not possible, whereas she would then be in a safe home. Yeah. Anyone else have any questions?
Just a comment of something that came to mind. You mentioned missions and as a part of, or maybe the other arm of your work. And I couldn't help but notice in your one slide right before you made the transition to Girls Globe, where you had exploring, partnering, equipping, and evaluating. And you mentioned a man of peace. You find a man of peace there. That's a concept that, you know, Jesus talked about. You go, you look for the man of peace in the village, and if they invite you in, then may your peace rest upon the house. If not, you turn and wipe the dust off your feet and protest against them and leave. And so we've been trained in that, to look for the person that will both welcome you into the community and also kind of look after you and be your liaison between the community and protect you, because they understand your value, what you're going to bring. And I couldn't help but see the overlap and exploring, partnership, equipping, evaluating. There's 5 things that we're prepared to do in missions, and first is survey, contact, proclaim, disciple, train. And your first is exploring, same thing as survey. You get an overall lay of the land first before you get started, and then partner you have secondly, and we had so survey, contact, and then proclaim, disciple, and train. I guess would say you fall under equipping, and then later evaluating. So are there people that are within She Is Safe, I'm curious, that have been missionaries, or that, and how much do you clearly make known that you are there as a Christian and this is a non-negotiable part of your work?
Yeah. So, and I hope it was clear, but with She Is Safe, really those least reached areas, and the gospel is really central to what we do. And so those that we partner with on the ground, that is also central to what they do. So we are both open about that, and in some countries it's different as far as how open you can be. We do work in high-risk areas, but yeah, that's really the main. I mean, our goal is life change, which would be emotional, physical, and spiritual. So that lines up in the partnerships that we also work with. Yeah.
I may have missed it from earlier, but do you partner in any cases where the local organisation or local people aren't, Christian?
Most everyone that we directly work with are, like, that is at their core. So that's really at the core of what we do, and that in order for it to be really a successful partnership, those things have to line up. There are, of course, we partners that are on the ground also connect and collaborate with those that are working there locally as well, and so those groups might not be Christian, or they might be Christian. So, yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions before we wrap up? Yeah.
Maybe just one more.
Yeah.
So when girls are reintegrated with their families, whenever that's possible, is there a certain way that you guys go about making sure that they won't be resold into slavery?
So that local ministry is in that community. So there will be follow-up with that girl, and there will be, we don't just send her back and say, that's it, but there's proper follow-up, and even just because she's back into her family doesn't mean that she can't also then benefit from other activities that ministry is doing.